Tonight, a momentous breakthrough in the Middle East. The deal has been signed, and now the Israeli government is voting to approve the first phase of a Gaza peace plan. This is how the news was received in Gaza. Tens of thousands now hoping the bombings will end. Hopeful hugs here in Israel too. All living hostages could be home by Tuesday.
I feel a heavenly sense of joy and overwhelmed with emotion. There's no greater joy than this.
This is happiness mixed with pain because we lost our loved ones, friends and neighbours.
In Washington, the president who made peace his mission declared an end to the war.
I think it's going to be a lasting peace, hopefully an everlasting peace. Peace in the Middle East.
But the killings haven't stopped. Reconstruction seems almost impossible. Tonight, we look ahead to what comes next. That's all coming up on The World with me, Yalda Hakim. Good evening from Jerusalem, where tonight there is a real chance that the scenes of horror we've witnessed in this region for 2 years could soon end. For the people of Israel and the people of Gaza, this is a defining moment, but it is also a precarious one. There could be a ceasefire as soon as tomorrow, but beyond that, there's no certainty. Will Israel withdraw? Will Hamas lay down its arms? Who will govern Gaza? It's a defining moment, too, for two of the men at the center of this all. Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu. One wants the Nobel Peace Prize. The other could secure his political future.
You remember we settled 7, this is number 8, we settled 7 wars or major conflicts, but wars. And this is number 8.
The deal was brokered in Qatar with US negotiators in the room, but that was the easy part. Hamas will surely want to be part of any coalition that governs Gaza. Israel won't accept that. So what happens then? And what about the reconstruction of the territory? 60% of all buildings have been destroyed, an estimated 90% of homes damaged. Here in Israel, government ministers are voting on whether to approve the peace deal. We will bring you that result as soon as it happens. Let's get started now with our first report from our international correspondent, Alex Rossi.
They had dreamed of this day, hoped for it, but even now, many can hardly believe it has finally come. In Hostages Square, where families and supporters gathered to plead for an end to the war and the safe return of the captives, there's now music, dancing, and tears of joy. For Danny Moran, whose son Omri was kidnapped from Kibbutz Nahal Oz, it is a moment of overwhelming relief.
I feel a heavenly sense of joy and overwhelmed with emotion. There's no greater joy than this. It's been like waiting 9 months for a baby in pregnancy, and instead, I've been waiting for my child for 2 years. I feel ecstatic.
But for other families who are waiting for the return of the bodies of their loved ones, it is a time of subdued celebration, joy tempered by grief and the weight of loss.
My father was there for 4 months alive, and that we failed to bring him for his release. And that if we're going to get lucky, so to speak, which is a crazy thing, lucky to get his remains and kind of bury him. That's what I'm expecting from me personally. Okay, the best outcome for me is to actually get something to bury.
After 3 days of negotiations, the breakthrough was announced by Donald Trump, first on social media, then in the White House, keen to show off the power of his diplomacy.
Last night we reached a momentous breakthrough in the Middle East, something that people said was never going to be done. The whole world has come together for this. People that didn't get along, people that didn't like each other, neighboring countries that frankly didn't like each other, but now it's just this moment in time.
This has been a turbulent few days. The talks in Egypt were tense at first, but eventually common ground was found and an agreement was reached. The Gaza Strip has been pounded for the last 2 years. The suffering of the population has been immense. The deal will also see huge amounts of aid flooding the enclave. But the sense of loss in this shattered place is staggering.
They are saying there is a ceasefire now. After what? After our beloved families and relatives died? What do we have left in the Gaza Strip? It's a wreck. There is no suitable housing, not even for dogs.
This is happiness mixed with pain because we lost our loved ones, friends and neighbours. But each one of us longs to return to our areas. We are fed up with displacement for 11 and 12 times. People are frustrated and exhausted.
And even after the agreement was announced, the fighting continued. Israeli tanks seen firing on Gaza's main coastal roads. The ceasefire is not expected to begin until Friday evening. This long war has caused extensive damage. It's hard to think how this place can be rebuilt. By evening, Israel's Prime Minister convened his security cabinet to discuss the new deal in the face of opposition from far-right ministers. The truth is that Benjamin Netanyahu had no choice but to go along with the deal. It was pushed through by the force of one man, the US president. And here he's being feted as the hero of the hour.
The celebrations here in Hostages Square have been going on for hours and will likely go on late into the night. But this is only the first phase of the Trump plan. Much could still go wrong if a more lasting peace is to be achieved. The question now is, will it hold and will it progress?
The Trump plan lays out a vision for a comprehensive peace. The first step, a ceasefire in Gaza and the release of hostages. But despite the euphoria here, the next steps will be even more difficult. Alex Rossi, Sky News, Tel Aviv.
Well, once the peace plan has been ratified by the Israeli government, it will be a busy few days in the region. Within the next 24 hours, a ceasefire will begin in Gaza and the IDF will retreat to an agreed perimeter. Then a 72-hour period for hostage release will get underway. All living hostages expected to be released by Monday or Tuesday. US President Donald Trump has said he's likely to travel to the region to sign an official deal and welcome the hostages. Well, let's get more analysis and bring in our Middle East correspondent Adam Parsons, who's been here with me. And Adam, it's been such a day full of emotions, the celebrations that we saw from the Israelis and, of course, the Palestinians. The first time we can see them in a long time celebrating almost the same thing. But everyone is waiting to find out the results that we know from the Israeli Security Cabinet. But it's not going to be a signed deal until it's ratified.
Yeah, and the meeting is still going on. I just got a message saying they're trying to get the meeting finished by midnight. So what's that, 52 minutes from now, but there's no guarantees. There's a lot to talk about. There's also been a bit of disruption because Benjamin Netanyahu left the meeting in order to meet Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, who had previously met the Israeli president, Isaac Herzog. So they are in town. He had talks with them, and Ron Dermer, his highly influential strategic affairs minister, joined that meeting. So the Americans are here. That talk, the meeting, it will be ratified. I think both Itamar Ben-Gvir and Bezalel Smotrich will vote against it and are talking once again about the possibility of collapsing the government. Ben-Gvir saying, if you don't dismantle Hamas, I will dismantle the government. I think at the moment Netanyahu won't worry about that. He will get this deal through and then deal, in a sense, with the fallout afterwards. In terms of the Palestinians, there are reports that despite this looming ceasefire, there has been a very significant strike on a building in Gaza City and reports of a high number of fatalities in that. A reminder that the fighting is still going on. You know, Yalda, on average over the last 2 years, over 90 people a day have been killed in Gaza because of Israeli military action. I think we always have to remember the extraordinary figures, precipitated, of course, by the 1,200 people killed on October the 7th. So the people of Gaza are desperate for this to finish. I think a lot of people in Israel are desperate. There are still those questions that you referred to, though. There's intractable questions about disarmament, about the long-term governance of Gaza. And frankly, I don't see anybody addressing those at the moment. Everyone is focused on the hostages and on the Palestinian prisoners who will be going on the other direction. Trump will be coming in here on Sunday, we anticipate, and it may be on Monday that the living hostages are released. The meeting tonight, as I said, it's going on at the moment. It will finish. This deal will be ratified. Then takes 24 hours because people can appeal against it, particularly, I would imagine, families of the victims of crime perpetrated, so Israel says, by the Palestinians that it is releasing. But that will go to court. I imagine that will be, in a sense, a show, because there's no way the courts are going to stop this deal. And then we will head towards what is a hugely consequential moment when we have this extraordinary fact that Hamas are endorsing the US president's actions, warm words from the US president referring to Hamas no longer as a terrorist organization, simply as Hamas. And I think a growing feeling that Israel felt it had been boxed in, that it knew its global reputation was being trashed, that the Arab states had put a huge amount of pressure on it to deliver a deal, and that its population is fed up, tired, weary, exhausted, wants this war to finish. The cynics, and you've spoken to them and so have I, both in the West Bank and in Gaza, are saying, is this a permanent ceasefire or is this a pause? Are we still under threat of annexation? And the answer tonight is, I don't think anyone knows.
Yeah, absolutely, Adam. And just briefly, just on that point again, even when the deal, it was announced yesterday in Sharm el-Sheikh, late last night, early hours of this morning, that it had been agreed to, we heard that there were explosions in Gaza. And again, just to highlight that for the people of Gaza, this hasn't ended. It hasn't ended for the hostage families waiting for their loved ones to come home. But that death toll continues for the Palestinians.
67,000 people. It's a number that we talk about, and yet sometimes you need to pause and think, 67, there's only 2 million people. That's over 3% of the population have been killed in this action. 10% of the population are casualties, either dead or wounded, and the attacks continue. We see a lot of smoke coming out of Gaza today.
Yeah, absolutely. Adam, thank you so much for all of your analysis throughout the day. Now, in the last few moments, the Hamas leader in Gaza, Khalil al-Hayya, has spoken welcoming the planned release of Palestinian prisoners. Of course, he was crucial. He was in Sharm el-Sheikh overnight as well. Let's just have a listen to what he had to say.
Today, we are announcing that we have reached an agreement to end the war and aggression against our people and to implement a permanent ceasefire. This will involve the withdrawal of occupation forces, the entry of aid, the opening of the Rafah crossing in both directions, and the exchange of prisoners. We will continue to work with national and Islamic forces to complete the remaining steps, working to achieve the interests of our Palestinian people, enabling them to determine their own destiny and fulfill their rights. This will continue until the establishment of an independent state with Jerusalem as its capital.
That's Khalil al-Hayya speaking in the last few minutes. Now, news of the agreement between Israel and Hamas was first announced by Donald Trump late last night, as we've been reporting. It's likely a ceasefire would still be a long way off were it not for the pressure he put on both sides. Just have a look.
I don't know if one day perhaps the entire story will be told about the events of yesterday, but suffice it to say, it's not an exaggeration that none of it would have been possible without the President of the United States.
Gaza is like a massive demolition site. That place it's really got to be rebuilt in a different way.
The letter I sent to the Nobel Prize Committee, it's nominating you for the Peace Prize, which is well deserved, and you should get it.
It would be a great honor, certainly, but I would never politic. I'm not doing it for that. I'm doing it because of, I really, number one, I want to save lives.
I support your plan to end the war in Gaza, which achieves our war aims. It will bring back to Israel all our hostages and ensure that Gaza never again poses a threat to Israel.
So many people fought so hard
This is a big day. We'll see how it all turns out.
Yeah, I was just given a note by the Secretary of State saying that we're very close to a deal in the Middle East, and they're going to need me pretty quickly.
We settled 7 wars, or major conflicts, but wars, and this is number 8.
President Trump, you have the best crowd in the world. What do you guys have to say to President Trump? Thank you.
Let's bring in our US correspondent Mark Stone, who's been watching all of those developments very closely for us from Washington. And Mark, you know, like him or hate him, the truth of the matter is, whether you appreciate Donald Trump's unorthodox ways or not, he seems to have gotten this over the line for now, and this is his victory for this moment.
Yeah, it really is. And I've been sort of, you know, I guess many of us have been absorbing what's happened and reflecting and working out what it is that Donald Trump has managed to do that others couldn't. After all, the deal that has now been pushed through is not all that dissimilar. The 20-point plan, some of which has now clearly been agreed to, phase 1, not all that different to the one that President Biden failed to push through. I think there are a number of factors at play here, and it is Donald Trump's very different style that has helped to push all this through. He's not an ideologue. He's a pragmatist. He's a deal maker. Short term, I think that has got him and got us to this position. Long term, will it last? We just don't know. But short term, it certainly appears to have worked. He puts deals and business before history and complexity, and I think that's really important to get to this point. Now he doesn't get bogged down in the history and the detail, so that I think is really important. He's a man who likes to be flattered. We know that. He loves that. He likes to be a winner. He likes to be a deal maker, and he loves to have his feathers ruffled. And I think you know, the Islamist group that is Hamas, that the designated terror group that is Hamas, that would just a few months ago not wanted in any way at all to be seen to flatter Big Satan, America, the United States of America, and Donald Trump, has come round to the idea, because they've been advised to do so by people who I've been talking to, come round to the idea that it was important to flatter Donald Trump, because then they would allow Trump to put more pressure on their enemy, Israel. They may get a better deal if Trump sees that they are flattering him. So these sorts of little details, I think, are fascinating. You know, we could talk more and more. I mean, genuinely, if he may not win the Nobel Peace Prize this year, because the nominations had to be in by January, but if this peace holds, and if he manages to secure peace in Ukraine as well, he is a genuine contender. There's an irony, a deep irony, of course, because he may well be forging peace around the world in certain areas, and these are early days. Let's be clear about that. And he doesn't appear to be forging peace in South America or the Caribbean, where he's bombing boats. But he's forging peace in the Middle East, maybe in Ukraine as well. And yet at home, he is such a deeply, deeply divisive person. So an irony there for sure. He's due in the Middle East this weekend. Israel, maybe. I would be surprised if he doesn't. Egypt, certainly, he said he'd go there. So let's see how these days unfold.
Mark, thank you, as always. Well, I'm joined now by former Prime Minister of Israel, Ehud Olmert. Prime Minister, thank you very much for joining us here again on the programme. We've spoken to you again and again, time again, over the course of the last 2 years. You've spoken about how Joe Biden should have handled Benjamin Netanyahu, and you talked about how Donald Trump should handle Benjamin Netanyahu and the kind of pressure that needed to be put on him. Are you satisfied with the direction of things and how things have unfolded when it comes to this particular moment?
Well, obviously, if Monday or Tuesday, as President said today, the hostages will be back at home and the war will end as promised, we'll be very happy. There was a very strong feeling of relief and joy when we heard that there seems to be an agreement which was announced last night. And I hope that it will come true. Yes, at this point in life, considering everything that we have been through in the last 2 years and the expectations we had long ago, a lot more than a year ago, that the war will end, finally, it seems to be coming true. And this is largely, or almost completely, because of the leadership that was manifested by President Trump. There's no question about it.
You yourself know all too well what it means to try and work towards a two-state solution, some kind of peace agreement with the Palestinians. In fact, when you were Prime Minister, it was perhaps one of the closest moments and times in which there could have been some kind of agreement reached. Are you cautiously optimistic or pessimistic about the plan that you see and the way that it may unfold?
Yalda, I do not permit myself to be pessimistic. I am optimistic by nature. I believe that there will be peace. But at this point now, what we have is possibly an agreement to end the war in Gaza, and to bring back the hostages, and to release prisoners, and hopefully also to establish a security force that will take over the practical control of Gaza in order to prevent Hamas from reviving itself into any position that might endanger the security of Israel. This is what we have. It is a great achievement, and we are grateful to the president and to everyone that has contributed to it, and many did, by the way. But he was the leader. From here, to move forward, we need to have a plan, a peace plan. And we don't have it. I mean, the Israeli government doesn't have it, and I don't hear yet the Palestinians talking about it. I have presented a plan, as you have mentioned, in 2008 when I was Prime Minister, a comprehensive peace plan for a two-state solution, with a Palestinian state on the basis of the 67 borders, with the Arab side of Jerusalem as capital of Palestine, with the old city of Jerusalem not under any exclusive political sovereignty, neither Israeli nor Palestinian, administered by a trust of 5 nations, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Palestine, Israel, and America. I mean, this is the basis. This is what needs to be done. If we will not move forward from where we will be on Monday or Tuesday, and the Israeli army will remain somewhere inside Gaza, and there will not be any political movement, then after a year, after less than a year or more than a year, we'll return back to where we were, which is not a solution, which is not anything that can change the lives, the security, and the future of millions of people, Israelis and Palestinians. What we have to accept it, just a minute, we have to accept it that this is an important turning point. But there is a long way to go before it becomes a promising road towards something more substantial.
Prime Minister, I just want to pick you up on that point, because that is the concern that people have. Come Monday, Tuesday, the hostages are returned, and we see bombardment continue in Gaza, or that, you know, Hamas decides that it doesn't want to disarm, or that it needs to have more of a say in the governance of Gaza. What happens at that point?
Well, you probably remember well, in many of the meetings that you had with me over the last couple of years, that I kept saying all the time, there ought to be a political horizon. There must be something that will offer a certain future after the end of the war. I keep saying all the time, okay, we kill all the Hamas. Okay, there is not one Hamas person left, not one fighter left alive. We killed all of them. We still have 2.2 million people living in Gaza. They destroyed Gaza. and we have so many more, 3 million and more, living in the West Bank. What future do we offer them that can change the military circumstances, security circumstances, the way of life of us and of them? This is incumbent upon us, and it's also incumbent upon the international community. And what I expect from President Trump is that he will take it now one step further, and he will exercise the kind of power that he has over the Prime Minister of Israel until he is replaced, which I hope will happen soon, to offer a political horizon, to say that Israel is prepared to engage in negotiations for a comprehensive solution on the basis of two states. There is no other solution. Doesn't matter how much hatred and pain and blood was spilled over the last couple of years and over history between us and the Palestinians. Both of us still don't have any alternative but to live alongside each other in our independent sovereign states with peace and respect and compromise. And someone has to push it. I'm afraid that presently the Israeli government is not capable, doesn't want to do it, unfortunately. And that's why I think it has to be replaced. Prime Minister Sturmer and President Macron have the right direction in terms of what they propose. But we need also the President of the United States to come along.
Former Prime Minister of Israel, Ehud Olmert, always good to talk to you. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
This is The World with me, Yalda Hakim, live here in Jerusalem. Next up on the programme, we examine the devastating impact of 2 years of war.
We arrive, a secret hospital hidden in the Myanmar jungle, treating the victims of this bloody war.
This is Myanmar today. Its military rulers don't want the world to see, but we have.
I fight for my own future. I fight for my generation's future.
This is an actual crime.
They don't care for that.
Myanmar army is only a couple of kilometers away. So this is a major humanitarian disaster.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. I'm ready. Are you? Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
I witnessed the complete destruction of a place linked to my childhood memories.
This is insane.
I'm Yusra Al-Bagher, Sky's Africa correspondent based in Johannesburg, South Africa. I felt awe when we saw the mountain gorillas in Rwanda.
We call him the king of the jungle. This is the alpha silverback.
Sky News, get the full story first.
Welcome back to the programme. This week marked 2 years since the October the 7th attack. 1,200 Israelis were killed that day and more than 250 others taken across the border into Gaza and held hostage. Since then, aside from a brief ceasefire, Israel has relentlessly attacked the territory in its efforts to defeat Hamas. Sky's Tom Cheshire has been assessing the war's devastating impact.
2 years of devastating war. This ceasefire could mean an end to the conflict and allow a final reckoning. Because at the start of this war, after Hamas launched an attack that killed 1,200 people in October 2023, few would have thought it would last this long. This was the destruction in Gaza only a week into the conflict, mapped by satellites using infrared to assess damage. 4% of all the buildings in Gaza were damaged or destroyed, mainly in North Gaza around Gaza City. Just a few months later, the offensive had massively expanded, taking in Khan Yunis in the south too, with more than half of all buildings damaged or destroyed, nearly 170,000 in total. On January the 11th this year, just before the first failed ceasefire came into effect, that had gone up to 58%, with Rafah in the south being more targeted. And this is the most up-to-date picture we have. More than 60% of all buildings destroyed, and the UN estimates that 90% of people's homes have been hit. Now, throughout the war, Israel has issued evacuation orders, although not in all cases. 71 were issued between January and July this year, indicating the scale of recent offensives. At the same time, the safe zones it had promised to Palestinians have also diminished. They're here in green. This was May last year, restricted areas in red, and this is this month. You've got vast swathes of Gaza marked as restricted areas. That safe zone diminished. Israel vowed to take control of Gaza, and it largely did. 85% of the Strip before the ceasefire agreement became a military zone. And that, of course, came at a huge human cost. Nearly 170,000 people injured, more than 67,000 people killed, according to Gaza's Hamas-run health ministry. Now, they don't distinguish between fighters and civilians in those statistics, but they include the more than 20,000 children who have been killed, around 1 in 3 of the total death count. The IDF says they've lost 466 Israeli soldiers in the conflict. And right up until the ceasefire announcement, Israel was still prosecuting this war with its full force. This was this week in Gaza City. Now, these tanks will soon withdraw. The hostages held by Hamas will be freed. The rubble left behind is the next daunting task, rebuilding a land that lies in ruins and helping the people rebuild their lives.
Tom Cheshire reporting there, and that data starkly lays out why many in Gaza are still not even daring to hope. I've been speaking to Hussam Zomlot, head of the Palestinian mission to the United Kingdom. He warned Israel has shown its willingness to violate past ceasefire agreements. Just have a listen.
Remember January 19th, and remember the ceasefire with Lebanon has been violating it every single day. So we should be hopeful, but also cautious and double down on the efforts to make sure this is an end to the aggression, an end to the genocidal war on our people in Gaza. And this will see unprecedented international help to help our people who are literally still starved, displaced, nowhere to go, to make sure that hostages are released, but there is an exchange of hostages and detainees, including Palestinian political leaders like Marwan al-Barghouthi and Ahmed Saadat, making sure that we move swiftly to ensure that Gaza is inseparable from the West Bank. It's one territorial entity under one legitimate government, that is the PLO and the Palestinian government, and have the rest of the world helping us, the Palestinian people, govern ourselves, rebuild our lives. And as President Trump 20 points say clearly that we need to focus and recognize Palestinian right to self-determination and statehood. If this is the direction, then every single step we take on the way must lead there. We should be oriented by that goal, and we drill backward.
That's Hussam Zumlot speaking to me earlier. Let's bring in Dr. Bishara Bahba, who served as an unofficial mediator between Hamas and the Trump administration. Dr. Bahba, thank you very much for joining us here on the program. You've been helping the U.S. administration with these negotiations. Just give me your reaction to the idea that the deal is now done. We're just waiting for the Israeli government, the cabinet, to ratify it.
Actually, the last portion, the last month, I have not participated in the negotiations, although I did meet with Hamas last Saturday here in Doha. And they've asked me to communicate a message to the White House, which I did. But that is the extent of my involvement in terms of the last stages of the agreement. Now, I see the agreement as a very hopeful agreement, as an opening toward the rebuilding of Gaza, as an opening toward the political path for the recognition of a Palestinian state by the United States and Israel itself. So I am hopeful, cautiously optimistic at the same time, just because you never know when it comes to the Israelis as to whether they will abide by their commitments or not. In this particular case, however, given that President Trump has given his written guarantees to Hamas that Israel would not violate the ceasefire agreements, Israel would commit that this war would end permanently, and it would commit to leaving Gaza permanently, I am confident that the Israelis will find it very compelling to have to abide by their commitments.
Dr. Bahba, you were also pivotal in negotiating the release of American-Israeli hostage Idan Alexander. You worked closely with Hamas on that deal as well. You've worked closely with the U.S. administration, as I said. You know these characters well. Do you feel confident that this deal is going to actually stick, knowing Hamas the way that you do? And you just talked there about, the Israeli government at present.
Hamas, from what I understand, is totally committed to this agreement. They've indicated to me multiple times that in the January 19th agreement, the ceasefire agreement, they never shot a bullet against the Israelis in the entire 2-month period when the ceasefire was in place, while the Israelis killed over 70 Palestinians during that same period. They have committed to me, or told me, that they would be committed to any agreement that they would ink with the U.S. administration mediating with Israel. I believe that they will stick to that agreement, but also, I would like to indicate that Hamas's role is going to diminish once the initial phases of the agreements are implemented. Hamas is handing over the management of the Gaza Strip to a technocratic independent Palestinian committee, which will be invited.
Do you believe they?
Yes.
Do you believe that they genuinely will do that, including disarming?
You're asking me two questions right now in the same sentence. With regard to the commitment to a ceasefire, yes, I believe that they will do so. Now, with regard to disarming, one has to look at the definition of what disarmament is. I've been told by American officials in the past that from their perspective, disarmament would be the handing over of Hamas of heavy military equipment to an Arab Palestinian party, while they insist on keeping their personal weapons for self-protection. So I believe that in both cases, that committing to a ceasefire, they will commit and they will fulfill. And if the disarmament entails the handing over of heavy equipment, the commitment not to smuggle any new equipment, the provision potentially of the maps of the tunnels where some of the equipment are, then I believe that we're on the road toward a peace agreement, and hopefully we're paving the way for the creation of a Palestinian state.
Dr. Bahba, fascinating talking to you. Thank you very much for joining us here on the program.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Well, under phase one of the deal, 48 Israeli hostages will be returned to Israel once the IDF troops have partially retreated. The bodies of the hostages who are believed to have died will be returned to their families. A total of 20 hostages believed to still be alive are also due to be reunited with their loved ones by next week. Well, one of the hostages is Alon Ohel. He was taken from a bomb shelter after fleeing the Nova Festival. For 14 months, he was held at the same place as my next guest, Eli Sharabi. Eli's brother, Yossi, was also a hostage and died whilst being held by Hamas. Eli joins me now. And of course, Eli spent nearly 500 days in captivity, an experience he's written about in a new book, A Hostage. Good to talk to you again. Eli, we spoke to you on October the 7th, just a few days ago, where you recalled that horrific day and what you went through for almost 500 days. But just talk us through this moment now for you. Did you think it would ever come?
Of course, I believed. I was always had a faith, that one day it will come to an end, this war, and hostages will be home. I believe that 50 meters underground for 440 days that I've been in Hamas tunnels, and before that 50 days in an apartment with a Palestinian family. I always believed my release will come, and after my release, I believe this war will come to an end, and we'll have all the other 48 hostages, bring them home really soon.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with the hostages that I found is it has felt like it's become one big family, one big community. Even those that were released over the last 2 years at different points, people like yourself, it did feel, just in the conversations I've had, like it was bittersweet because you knew that you had left someone behind by being released.
And for us as Israelis, we never, you learn it when you are even in the kids, but especially in the army, you never leave someone behind. And of course, when we've been together in Hamas tunnels, 50 meters underground, 4 of us, we become a family. And unfortunately, only 3 of us from the 4 been released 250 days ago. And Alon Ohel, our friend, stayed there. We're really waiting for him.
Yeah, tell me about that, because there is now talk that perhaps the hostages will be released over the weekend, perhaps on Monday or Tuesday. Talk me through the emotion of when that happens and how you'll be feeling.
For me, of course, it will be a very happy day, but I believe Alon already knows now that he's going to be released, and he's waiting for that. He's waiting to hug his family. I hope he's still okay. Like last time I've seen him, it's really, really happy moment, especially for his family that probably doesn't sleep since yesterday until, since the deal's been signed, and they are waiting for him.
Yeah, Eli, when we spoke the other day, you talked about the fact that you didn't know that your wife and your daughters had been killed after you were separated from them. How are you coping with life since being released and knowing that the life you had no longer exists?
my life changed 180 degrees, and of course I lost my house, I lost my family. The place I've been, lived there for 35 years, Kibbutz Be'eri. There's no longer a house for me. My life changed. I need to use to my new life, but I have a great family that support me, great friends that support me, and I'm sure I'm going to rebuild my life. Since my release, I spoke for the rest of the hostages that remain in Gaza Strip. Among them is my brother, and I met prime ministers and presidents, and I wrote my book. I'm very busy. I'm having a new life. I rebuild my life. My loss and my grief, will be with me every day until my last day. But it will be alongside of my life and not instead of them.
Eli Sharabi, really good to speak to you again. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Now, though a peace deal looks more likely now than it has for a long time, we are only at the start of an incredibly complex process. Our Middle East correspondent Adam Parsons reports now on the difficulties still ahead.
In Gaza, there is delight at this ceasefire, but it is a joy that's tempered by the stark, grim facts. 67,000 people have been killed here over the past 2 years. The bombs have destroyed homes, towns and trust. Nobody dares to believe that peace will be permanent. In Gaza, many believe Israel still harbours hopes of annexing this land. Ahed Fairwana is a well-known political analyst. He's lived through this war and has been displaced from his home. Fairwana told us the peace plan was vague, but that he hoped it would thwart any plans Israel had to return.
Hamas has previously said it is willing to give up its weapons for a Palestinian state. But Trump's plan proposes international oversight instead, and that creates ambiguity. Still, if there is substantial internal and external pressure, I think an agreement is likely, amid it denying Israel any pretext to continue justifying its aggression in Gaza.
Smoke still rises over Gaza. The fighting has not yet stopped. But this is how things might change. At the moment, Gazans have been told to head towards a so-called humanitarian zone to stay safe. Under the plan, the IDF would withdraw behind this yellow line, but they'd still control half the territory. And even the final stages do not see a complete Israeli exit from the enclave. The Trump plan also calls for an international body to run Gaza in the future, and for many that is unacceptable, an overhang of colonial instincts.
The board of peace will need to have more than just two figureheads from the West. This isn't 1919 anymore, and it's got to have credible figures from the region and from the Palestinian community.
Place order in the hall.
Israel's global reputation has been battered. Witness the walkout at the United Nations before Benjamin Netanyahu's speech. Even its closest relationships have been strained. So how has the Middle East been changed by the past 2 years of war?
I think, if anything, the region now is certainly far less safer than it has been in the last few decades. And that includes Israel and Israelis themselves. Israel has been so emboldened enough to admit that it is looking to expand its borders and has continued aggressions, has continued violations, has continued to rescind its various agreements with different states in the region.
This deal is not perfect. It's not a long-term comprehensive solution to the region's problems, but it does offer respite, optimism and breathing space. And after 2 years of harrowing war, that's something many will cherish. Adam Parsons, Sky News, Jerusalem.
now by Hadi Amr, former US Special Representative for Palestinian Affairs, who's now at the Brookings Institute. Thank you so much, Mr. Amr, for joining us here on the programme. We've had all sorts of views over the course of not just the last 24 hours since we've seen this deal come alive at more than at any other point, but even when Donald Trump first spoke about this 20-point peace plan, there were those who were pessimistic about it. I just want to get your reaction to this.
Look, so first of all, for basically 2 years now, much of the world's been asking for a ceasefire. Palestinians in Gaza have endured incredible bloodshed, the equivalent of an October 7th level of attacks every 2 weeks in terms of deaths in Gaza, 3% of the population killed. Of course, the Israeli captives, Palestinian captives. So I think there is hope in the immediate term that this can, bring at least some modicum of peace for the immediate term.
Are you worried, though, that beyond an immediate sort of ceasefire agreement, the hostages coming out, some aid getting into Gaza, that there is risks, with the other points in the plan that it could fall apart?
So this is not a long-term peace plan. It does not, embrace UN resolutions, final status agreements. It just, gives a tip of a hat to we need to talk about these things. The world has shown, right, with the change of public opinion, with the UK and a dozen other states recognizing a Palestinian state, just an incredible amount of impatience, not only for the war, the immediate war to end, but to move to a world where Israelis and Palestinians can enjoy the same rights, the same freedoms, the same security, the same prosperity. Because if neither has it, then the other side can't have it either. And so there just needs to be a concerted effort. What we've learned over the last half century is that asking nicely to resolve this problem does not resolve the problem. There needs to be pressure on the parties to move towards equality, justice, and freedom for all. And without that pressure, we will not get there.
So you're saying the kind of pressure that we've seen over the past couple of weeks, whether it's Donald Trump on Benjamin Netanyahu or the Qataris, the Turks, the Egyptians on Hamas, it's that kind of pressure that is required going forward?
Absolutely. We need a commitment from governments and really from the citizens of so many of these countries that have called for this, for sort of action until equality, right? That there needs to be action until Israelis and Palestinians enjoy equality. And ironically, I believe, as you've just referenced, it was actually Netanyahu's hubris in attacking Qatar that united the Arab and Muslim countries in a manner to both pressure Hamas and go to Donald Trump with a united front to kind of and say enough is enough. This has to end immediately. And, that, of course, is in addition to the fact that Hamas is defeated. That's, of course, in addition to the fact that the European countries and the UK and Canada and Australia have recognized the Palestinian state. And it's also a recognition by the Palestinian Authority, by the way, and their willingness to work under the auspices of Saudi Arabia and other Arab governments to move forward. And then there's Donald Trump's explicit motivation for a Nobel Prize.
Hadi Amr, thank you very much for joining us and giving us your thoughts on the programme.
Thank you.
Let's bring in our Middle East correspondent, Adam Parsons, who's here with me now. Adam, we spoke at the beginning of the programme. You were talking about the Israeli government planning to ratify this deal. You said that their meeting would end in about 50 minutes' time. I guess it's still going.
Yeah, well, I said it, but they were trying to get it done by midnight. They've got 6 minutes. I mean, look, these things are complicated, and they have been made more complex by, predictably, Itamar Ben-Gvir and Bezalel Smotrich. Both clearly going to oppose this deal. Also, Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner are now, I don't know if they're still in there, but they joined the government meeting. So I don't feel that they are necessarily sensing any obligation to speed this through, and yet actually it is midnight. Early on today I thought it was going to be done by 8 o'clock, so it shows you the unpredictability of this, but I'm sure they feel the weight of history on them, because this is a very, very big decision. They're going to pass this deal. Everybody knows that. Even if Ben-Gvir and Smotrich oppose it, it's still going to get through. It'll be ratified, and a ceasefire will come into effect. And so tomorrow, objections to it from the public will be lodged inevitably, and at the same time, the Israeli military will start moving away. And notably, still, we are seeing today attacks, suggesting that in Gaza City, a really horrible attack on a family home that Hamas is saying has led to 70 people being either killed or injured. Right here we are at the very end of this military conflict, and still people are dying. Clearly, once peace happens, and it cannot happen quickly enough for the people of Gaza, then we go into the next stage. We head towards the hostage exchange on Monday and Tuesday, and the arrival of the US president, possibly on Sunday.
Indeed. Adam, thank you so much. And as Adam was saying there, we are anticipating Donald Trump, his arrival to the region. He spoke in the last few hours, and he said that he would be coming here. He was asked whether he would speak at the Knesset, which he said he would do. So we'll be watching all of the developments. But for now, good night. The news at 10 is next, and we'll be back with the latest.